have you folks introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Cindy Watts.
Ron Watts.
Thank you. And I have authorized you to make a statement to the court as paternal grandparents of the children. And if you choose not to make a statement, but your designee, Ms. Powers, chooses to, she can do so as well. How would you like to proceed
Can
today?
I read that?
Yeah, do you want me to start?
I want you to start, but I would like to read
Who's going to be speaking today?
Your Honor, initially, they've asked me, and they're hoping that they have the strength to speak, but if they do not, they've written out their statements and asked me to finish for them. So
That would be fine. Who would like to go first?
if I could start, Your Honor. On behalf of the Watts, Your Honor, and to the community, we thank you for the opportunity and the recognition under the Victim Bill of Rights. We come today as the grandparents and the parent of the daughter and children whose life was taken in this case. We are not here to ask for leniency. We are not in any way condoning or tolerating the crime that has occurred and the pain that has been caused. We join in our daughter-in-law and grandchildren's family in saying this should never have happened. This is not condonable. This is something that we will never get over. We appreciate the consideration that everyone has paid, most especially the families that have lost everyone. We appreciate that they begged for Christopher's life. We agree and echo what they have said, that it is not his place to take anyone's life, nor would it be our place as a community to take his life. So we thank you for the opportunity and for every consideration and effort that's been put out. The prosecution in this case has in fact respected the Victim Bill of Rights. They took the time to explain that the information that my clients had at the time that they were interviewed was not correct. They were misinformed. They were searching for answers. They were not intending to cause any pain to anyone, and they appreciate that the prosecution answered their questions and gave them the time and the respect and the consideration so that they could tell this court and everyone in this community that the interview content was not their message, that they accept that their son has done this, that they accept that he chose to plead guilty, that he sought and requested their consent and agreement for a life sentence. They appreciate that he is given the opportunity to serve that life sentence. It is his responsibility, it is his sentence, and it is not enough to make up for what has done. We understand and we join the family in that we have questions. We don't know how such a thing could possibly happen, or that a man that was responsible for raising his children and protecting his wife would take the steps that he did, and that he would disregard their bodies and the love that he had for them and they had for him and everyone else, and take the gestures and put this community through the investigation and the discovery and the responsibility of bringing justice. We do not understand that. We do not think it was appropriate. We cannot begin to think that an explanation will ever justify it. My clients indicate that they understand that a full opportunity for a confession with all of the responsibility and accountability has not occurred. And they support the family and the request that that happen, if not today, at an appropriate time, in an appropriate manner, so that everyone can have peace, to understand to the best of their ability the details that they need and to have their questions answered. And by giving this opportunity of a life sentence, we hope that he embraces that moment. That had the death penalty been pursued, there would not have been an opportunity to be accountable and to give a full confession. And had the death penalty been sought, counsel would have fought for his life, the prosecutors would have been engaged in a multiple-year battle, the families would have been torn apart, this community would have had to subsidize it and endure it, and we have so much respect and gratefulness that that did not happen. We would strongly encourage Christopher Watts to give that full confession in the tone and in the timing that he thinks is appropriate with the guidance of his counsel. We feel that it would be appropriate and helpful to ease the pain and the suffering. But we also say we don't think that there's anything that he can say that will ever account for his behavior. There's nothing that can be done to cure the harm he has caused.
It's been more than 7 years since Shanann's family last saw her alive, taken in the most unthinkable way, by her own husband. The pain has not eased, it follows them every single day. And yet, into that grief, Chris Watt's mother, Cindy, has chosen to speak, her words directed toward the very family who lost their daughter and grandchildren. What does this mean for parents still mourning the irreplaceable? Is it an attempt at comfort, or another effort to shift the picture of her son from a convicted killer into something else? Stay tuned to find out. For a man who ended the lives of his beloved wife and 2 beautiful girls, he now sits behind bars serving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. But his mother, Cindy Watts, who was 55 years old at the time of those interviews in November 2018, was unwilling to stay silent. She voiced her perspective directly to the public and, in effect, to her sons' in-laws, Frank and Sandra Rzucek. Cindy believed the world was rushing to conclusions, and she wanted to shed light on who she insisted her son really was. That decision launched a storm of words, many of them striking the Rzuceks as painful and offensive. And it all began with back-to-back interviews in the second week of November 2018. On November 12, Cindy and Ronnie Watts appeared on Denver 7, their first major television sit-down after Chris's guilty plea. Cindy declared, "He's not a sociopath. He's not a psychopath." She rejected the idea that her son was a monster, insisting that the Chris she raised had always been gentle, easygoing, and nonviolent. She pointed to his childhood filled with sports, baseball, basketball, football, and said he had never been one to fight or cause trouble. For Cindy, this portrait of normalcy mattered because it contradicted the emerging narrative that Chris was hiding a dangerous double life. Ronnie sat beside her, equally resolute, nodding as Cindy pressed their defense. Cindy also revealed what she had told Chris privately: "If you did not do this, do not confess to something you didn't do." She claimed she had tried to make this clear to him before his plea was entered, but that his attorneys pushed her away, telling her she couldn't interfere. She said the process felt rushed, as though decisions were being made before the family had time to ask questions. Most pointedly, she stated, "I want him to fight. I don't want him to take this plea deal. I want him to plead not guilty to the children." In that moment, Cindy was not just defending her son's character, she was actively challenging the justice system that had already accepted his guilt. The very next day, November 13, the couple expanded their remarks in another interview carried by ABC's WTVD and ABC 7 New York. This time, Cindy repeated the words that would echo across headlines: "He's not a monster." She described her son's marriage to Shanann as a very hard relationship, saying she felt she couldn't do anything right in Shanann's eyes. Cindy said she believed her daughter-in-law had steadily isolated Chris from his family, making it harder for her to maintain a bond with him. Ronnie added his voice, stressing that all they wanted was the truth of what really happened. He emphasized, "If he did it all, I can live with it. If he didn't, I want him to fight." Interlaced with these defenses was something even more contentious. The Watts parents repeated what Chris had told them in those chaotic early hours after his arrest. Ronnie said that Chris confessed to him privately that he killed Shanann only after she had strangled the girls. "He told me that's what happened," Ronnie recounted, explaining that he believed it at the time because of how broken Chris seemed as he cried. Cindy echoed this account, saying Chris told them he went into a rage after finding Shanann harming Bella and Celeste. To the public, and especially to the Rzuceks, repeating this story felt like pointing the finger at Shanann, even though investigators had already discounted it and Chris himself later admitted full responsibility. For Cindy and Ronnie, however, these were not careless words. They were grasping for a way to reconcile the son they knew with the horror they were being told he committed. By insisting that the marriage was troubled, that Shanann had isolated Chris, and that his character was never violent, they were indirectly challenging Shanann's parents' memories of their daughter. What sounded to the Rzuceks like an attack on Shanann was, to the Wattses, a defense of their son. Yet the effect was the same, two grieving families locked in a battle over narrative, each desperate to hold on to a version of truth that preserved the dignity of the one they loved. The timing of these interviews made the clash even sharper. Chris had just pleaded guilty on November 6. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for November 19. While Shanann's parents prepared to deliver victim impact statements, Cindy and Ronnie were on television insisting that their son was not what the public believed. They expressed suspicion of the plea deal, suggested that crucial facts were missing, and painted Shanann in a way that contradicted how her own family saw her. What might have been intended as a plea for understanding quickly became, in practice, a public rebuke of the Rzuceks' grief. The message was unmistakable. Cindy and Ronnie were saying that the story was not settled, that their son was misunderstood, and that Shanann's role had to be reconsidered. By speaking to the cameras, they were in effect speaking directly to Shanann's parents, sending a message across the divide: we lost too. You are not the only victims here. The Rzuceks heard these words as falsehoods and character attacks, but to the Wattses, they were declarations of maternal and paternal loyalty. The interviews ended, but the impact reverberated. By the evening of November 13, the lines were drawn. Cindy and Ronnie had given their first big public defense, and Shanann's parents were preparing to answer. The stage was set for one of the most emotionally charged rebuttals of the entire case. At this point, we need to acknowledge the response Shanann's family made to the Watts interviews, especially to Cindy's remarks, and we need to be clear about the different kinds of loss involved. Frank and Sandra Rzucek lost their daughter forever. There is no visiting room, no phone call, no chance to hear her voice again. What remains are memories, photos, home videos, and the daily ache of absence. For the Watts family, their son is alive but imprisoned, his freedom is gone, but his life remains. This isn't a contest over who suffers more, it's a framework for understanding why every word in the days ahead mattered so much, and why Shanann's parents chose to answer right away. On the morning of November 13, 2018, they did just that. The Rzuceks issued a written statement that local outlets carried in full, and there was no ambiguity in the way they began. Shanann Watts was a faithful wife, and the most gentle and loving mother in the world to her children Bella, Celeste, and Nico. She was also the best daughter any parent could ever hope for. Shanann was a wonderful soul. They stressed that everyone who knew her understood this to be true, and they added a pointed line directed at the competing narrative taking shape on television: even Chris knew who she was. The statement then restated the basic facts already admitted in court: he chose to kill Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, to hide their bodies, and he chose to lie until he could not lie any longer. He pled guilty to murdering his family because he is guilty. After establishing their daughter's character, Shanann's parents turned to the interviews from the previous night. They said that in attempting to defend their son, Chris's parents had made statements about Shanann that were vicious, grotesque, and utterly false. They acknowledged that those accusations were hurtful, but said that none of it would change the truth of who Shanann was or what Chris had done. The statement closed on a promise about the future, a line that would guide their public posture from then on: Shanann's memory and reputation deserves to be protected. And her family is fully prepared to do so. The message was immediate, direct, and unmistakable. That promise was more than a defense of a loved one, it was a boundary. By insisting that Chris pleaded guilty because he was guilty, the Rzuceks rejected claims that the plea was rushed or that it left the truth untold. By centering Shanann as faithful, gentle, and loving, they countered every suggestion that portrayed her as isolating or abusive. And by calling the interviews false, they made clear they would not allow their daughter's name to be reshaped in the court of public opinion. The function of their rebuttal was to answer Cindy's framing point for point while pulling the story back to the person they believed the country needed to remember: Shanann, as she truly was. That is the ground they chose to stand on, and they did it within hours. Meanwhile, if you are enjoying this video, be sure to give this video a like. Now, let's continue. There was another layer to why their words hit so hard. In the official records released later that month, investigators summarized text messages where Shanann described a confrontation during the North Carolina visit the previous July, often discussed later as the allergy or nut incident. In those texts, she told Chris that his mother had given Celeste ice cream with nuts in the ingredients and that she felt it was done despite repeated warnings about her daughter's allergy. She urged him to tell his parents that putting their child at risk was not acceptable and that teasing the girls with treats they could not safely have was wrong. Whether one calls it a clash or an incident, the key point is that the dispute and the allergy risk appear in the case records, not as rumor but in documented messages. That context helps explain why Shanann's parents reacted with urgency to any suggestion that she was careless or controlling. Ronnie followed and kept the focus on responsibility rather than excuses. He said they would never abandon their son, but he also asked him to be forthcoming about everything, to own what he had done and to stop holding back details that both families needed to hear. In that short address, he echoed something the prosecution and the Rzuceks had been asking for since August: tell it all, with nothing left to debate. There was no attempt to relitigate the earlier claim that shifted blame toward Shanann. On sentencing day, that version had no place in front of the bench. What Ronnie chose to say instead pulled the message closer to accountability, even as he promised love that would not end at the prison gate. It was a narrow path to walk, but he walked it in plain words. Outside their personal statements, the Watts side also delivered a note through a representative that aimed to repair the damage their earlier interviews had caused. The representative told reporters that Ronnie and Cindy had not intended to cause pain to anyone with their media comments and that they had been misinformed about aspects of the case. He added that they accepted Chris had committed the murders and that they were hoping for a full confession at an appropriate time and in an appropriate manner, so both families could have the answers they needed to find some measure of peace. It was a plain admission that the public defense they launched a week earlier had crossed lines and that the facts in court were not in dispute.
Okay. So again, this room is recorded, and video and audio. We introduced ourselves in the lobbies and earlier, so we're just going to do that again real quick. My name is Kevin Kovac. I'm with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and we're assisting the Frederick Police Department with this case involving Chris Watts. And this is Tim Martinez, also an agent at CBI. Sir, if you just introduce yourself.
Dwayne Kessinger. I'm Nicole's father.
Dwayne, what's your birthday?
November 3rd, 1958.
And home address for you, sir?
8801 West 65th Avenue.
What city?
And that's Arvada, 8004.
And a cell phone or a home phone or where?
720-982-4547.
Thank you. And Nicole, can you just introduce yourself for the recording?
Nicole Kessinger. Do you need all the other stuff?
Yes, please.
I live at 12255 Claude Court, Unit 612. Phone number 720-656-9605.
Claude Court, is that? I think we determined it was North Glen, right?
Yes.
Do you know your zip code?
80249.
Okay. Can you speak up just a little bit so the recorder? I know you're tired and you're stressed, and we won't be here any longer than we have to be. You've already had a conversation with people before. You came here on your own free will to talk to us. We picked you up at your request and brought you here. You can get up and leave at any time. You don't have to talk to us. If there's a question you don't want to answer, don't answer it. If you don't want to talk anymore, just tell me I want to leave. And I'm kind of in the way of the door, but you're not being interrogated as a criminal suspect. We're here to understand your relationship with Chris and what you know about Chris and his family, and events relating to Chris Watts. And do you know him as Chris or Christopher?
Either one.
Okay. So the phone number that you reached him on, can you tell me what that number was?
I think I deleted that out of my phone too. I just cut him out of my life. It's a 910 number. You guys have it.
No, we gave it to Mark yesterday.
Yeah, I probably
He'll
have it,
have
but
it.
just in case,
I don't have it
If I
anymore.
recited it to you, would you know it?
Just the first three numbers.
But you know it as a 910 number?
Yes, that's what I do know. I mean, that's what I got.
North Carolina or something.
Yeah.
That's
North
what it
Carolina.
is.
Okay, so let's just start with like a timeline of your getting to know Chris, how you guys met, where you met, all those things. And let's just run. And I'm not going to ask you specific questions unless I think it's necessary. I'll let you just tell me your story. I think it's a little bit easier that way. So I just want to know how you met him, where you met him, how long you guys were dating, and those kind of things initially.
Okay. I think I met him sometime in June, probably early June. It might have been May. It was just talking at work. It was pretty casual. And he didn't have a wedding ring on his finger. And every time I talked to him, he didn't tell me that he was in a relationship. He didn't even mention his kids right away either. And then one day he told me that he had 2 kids. I was like, that's pretty cool. And started telling me about his kids.
That sounded like a sarcastic comment.
No, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, he's a dad. It was like right around Father's Day too. So whenever that is in June.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not
that's-
good with holidays.
He told me he had kids, and then it was Father's Day shortly after
Okay.
that. So that's what I do now. And I was like, I thought it was cute. And then he's telling me about him. He's pretty excited about him. And then he mentioned that he did have a significant other. And then he told me that those 2 were in the process of a separation.
Did he mention the children's name or his significant other's name?
I didn't know his significant other's name for a while. And then I think he told me his kids' names pretty quick, but to be honest with you, on an exact date of when that happened, I don't know.
So in May and June, first of all, where do you work?
I work at Anadarko Petroleum Corporation. I'm contracted to Anadarko Petroleum Corporation
Okay, and you work out of an office setting where?
in Platteville, Colorado.
Okay. And Chris also works out of that location, per
yes.
se.
Yes. He's in the field, but he comes into the office with his team.
So you work, what is your job responsibility?
I do health, safety, and environment.
Okay, so you work in the office and you take care of health safety for, Anadarko is an oil and gas company, right?
Yes.
So you're doing health safety in the office and Chris works in the field
Yes.
as a, what kind of job does he do?
He's an operator, so I don't know like all of his daily duties, but he's a field operator, so he works with like the oil wells.
So he goes out and does work on those, whatever
Yes.
that work might be, but he comes into the office frequent.
In the
Or-
mornings, his team meets in the mornings. They're not all in there every day. Some days some of them are in there, some days other ones are in there, but in the mornings typically from like 6:15 to probably 7, somewhere around there.
And is that where you met Chris?
Yes.
Okay. So can you just take us through kind of a little bit of the early part of how he courted you or you courted him? I don't know which one happened. How you guys got to know each other?
I guess we just started talking. He actually, so part of my job is to manage the gas monitors that we have. So Anadarko requires all of their field personnel to carry like gas monitor sensors for toxic gases, and it's my job to control the inventory, any issues, anything like that. And we were having some pretty serious like equipment issues, and we had numerous amounts of people coming in my office one day, and he happened to be one of them. And I'd seen him before, like they meet in the lunchroom, and that's where I go put my lunch in the fridge. So I'd seen him, but I didn't ever like talk to him. So that day we just started talking, and then every time I saw him in the hallway after that, and it was always hit or miss, like it wasn't an everyday thing, it was just when I saw him, we just started talking, and we just kind of had a lot in common and just hit it off, so we'd always have, pretty good conversations, and then I don't know. One day he told me that he had kids and started talking about his kids, and then mentioned, yes, that I have a wife, but we're getting separated. I said, okay. And then
When do you think that was?
when he said all that,
So specifically when he told you he was getting separated from his wife, was that within the first couple of weeks that you knew him, or was that later on? You said you met him around May or June.
Yeah, it was still in June.
Okay.
It would have been before Father's Day.
So had you guys ever gone out on any kind of
No.
date at that time? You just
No,
were
no.
conversing at work?
Yeah, that's all it was. And then, I don't know, we started hanging out. We hung out. We went to a park. Hung out at a park.
Let's go back real quick. So why did he tell you that he was getting a divorce? Did he ask you out at that time?
No, he didn't. I think he was probably interested in me. And so, he talked to me a couple times via his work phone, and I was like, no. Like, it was still very, like, friendly conversation. But then when I realized, like, this man is interested in me, I'm interested in him, this is personal, so we got away from the Anadarko thing because I really don't want those guys affiliated with any of this. And
So you have a work phone that's specifically...
no, I have one phone that I do both on. He has two phones.
Okay, so he had your phone, the 720-656.
That's the only number that I roll with all the time.
Okay.
So he has two phones.
All right. One of those owned by Anadarko and
Yes,
one
sir.
personal.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what his Anadarko phone number was? Okay.
It's been so long, and I mean, I'm sure I could like look it up, but I tried to look it up for those guys yesterday, and I couldn't find it.
Okay. We can find it. That's okay. Just wondering if you knew it.
But at that point, we just like took it to his phone because I just felt it was like better that way. And we just continued to talk, and then
Let me go back to the park. Where's the park?
it's like down the street from my house. It's called East Lake Number 3.
Your house
Yes.
in Northglen?
Yes.
And that was in the June time frame.
Yeah, or like the beginning of July. It was like right around my birthday. It's like so sometime at the very end of June or the beginning of July.
Okay. And that's the first meeting you had outside of work.
Yeah.
The basic conversation for a first date?
I mean, we kept it pretty simple, I guess, you know. I don't even remember everything we talked about. We
Sure.
were there for a few hours. But
Understand so if I ask about conversation, what I'm looking for, was he talking about his family during any of these meetings? Those are the kind of, I understand, whatever you guys were talking about, relationship, your life, your interests, those things, we don't need to know that. What I'm interested in is knowing is when he brings up his children, when he brings up his wife, when he brings up financial information, when he brings up his home, when he brings up anything that may have been, and it's been a few days, so you've had a chance to reflect.
It also placed the burden back where it belonged, on Chris, to meet truth with truth. That shift is why this day stands apart from the interviews that came before it. Around them, Shanann's parents spoke with a strength that left the courtroom silent. Frank Rzucek addressed Chris without turning, calling him a heartless monster and reminding the court of the daughter and granddaughters he would never see again, followed by the line that traveled far beyond Greeley, Shanann says she's super excited for justice today. Sandra Rzucek spoke about the loss no sentence could fix and the faith that held her up when nothing else did. The judge, for his part, called the murders perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime he had seen, and then pronounced the terms that ensured Chris would die in prison.
Has considered the arguments made by the attorneys. The court has considered the statements made by the victims in this case. The court's going to find that the plea agreement is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. I want to acknowledge the Rzucek family as well as the Watts family that showing mercy on Mr. Watts is understood, and I respect that decision to request that the district attorney not seek the death penalty in this case. And so the court is going to accept this plea bargain under the circumstances. Words that come to mind when I hear the evidence in this case are a senseless crime and the viciousness of the crime. And equally aggravating in this court's determination is the despicable act of disposing of the bodies in the manner in which they were done in this case. I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could objectively say that this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen. And nothing less than a maximum sentence would be appropriate, and anything less than the maximum sentence would depreciate the seriousness of this offense. So the court is going to sentence Mr. Watts as follows. With regard to count number 1, murder in the first degree as it relates to Shanann Watts, the court is going to sentence you, sir, to a life sentence in the Colorado Department of Corrections, followed with no possibility of parole. And that is going to run consecutively to all but counts 3 and 4. With regard to count 2, as it relates to murder in the first degree with Bella, the court is going to sentence you to life in the Colorado Department of Corrections with no possibility of parole. With regard to count number 3, the court is going to sentence you as it relates to Celeste to life in the Colorado Department of Corrections with no possibility of parole. With regard to counts 4 and 5 relating to Bella and Celeste as a different theory of first-degree murder, the court is going to sentence you to life in the Colorado Department of Corrections, and legally those sentences must run concurrently as a different theory of first-degree murder. Recognizing the unlawful termination of pregnancy for the unborn child that has been named Nico, the court absolutely believes that the maximum sentence of 48 years would be appropriate to run consecutive to the other charges, with an additional mandatory parole period of 3 years as set forth by statute. With regard to count number 7, as it relates to tampering with a deceased body, as well as counts 8 and 9, each a class 3 felony, the court is going to impose a maximum sentence of 12 years each for those counts to run consecutively to the other counts. The court is going to order that the statutory fees be paid and court costs. The court's going to grant the prosecution 91 days to file a notice of restitution, and that will be the sentence of the court. We will shortly be in recess. I would respectfully ask the parties that you remain in your seat. There is a plan by the deputies on allowing people to exit the courtroom, so please remain seated until you are authorized to leave the courtroom based on the direction of the deputies. Deputies, I would respectfully ask that you take this defendant into custody and have him serve the rest of his life in the Department of Corrections. We are in recess.
In that setting, Cindy's and Ronnie's words carried a different charge than the week before. They did not contest guilt, they did not assign it elsewhere, and they did not argue with the family seated a few feet away. They chose to say thank you for the mercy that avoided a capital trial and to ask their son to finally speak without hiding. By the time the hearing ended, the public message from Cindy and Ronnie had moved, still rooted in love for their son, but aligned, at least in part, with the Rzuceks on the need for truth and the acceptance of guilt. They did not withdraw their history of interviews, and they did not pretend the week hadn't happened. Instead, they placed on the record a request for atonement and a recognition that words said in pain can wound people already carrying more than any parent should. The legal story was closed, but the human story was not, and both families left the courthouse with sentences of their own to serve, the kind that have no end date. What remained was the question that lingered over every microphone: would Chris give the full account they had all asked him to give, or would the last detail stay buried with the lives he took? The answer to that question would decide whether these statements marked a turn toward closure or just another stop on a long road. And as the doors opened and the families stepped into the cold air, you could feel the next chapter pulling at them from just ahead, where promises of the truth would have to be measured against what finally came to light. After sentencing, Cindy's public posture did not vanish, it settled into something steadier and quieter, a mother who would not disown her son, who wanted the full account, and who worried about what might happen to him behind bars. In the days after the hearing, she told people she feared for his safety, saying there was no telling what would be done to him in prison, a concern that echoed through later updates describing him as isolated and unwelcome even among inmates. That worry never morphed into excuses for the crime, it sat alongside her stated acceptance that he had done this and her plea that he be fully honest. Coverage in 2020 and 2021 described him as an outcast serving multiple life terms in Wisconsin, the kind of inmate who draws threats and requires added protection. The portrait that emerged was stark, a man marked by his offense and a mother who could not stop imagining the worst every night. This was not advocacy for release, it was the simple fear of a parent picturing a son who cannot walk the yard in peace. As months turned into a year, there were few new mainstream, on-record messages from Cindy aimed at Shanann's parents. The late 2018 interviews and the words at sentencing remained the backbone of her public stance. When she did surface, it was usually in the context of letters, faith, and the hope that Chris would someday speak without holding anything back. In mid-2019, people reported on a jailhouse letter where Chris told Cindy he was a changed man who had found God, a note she read on an HLN special, hardly a message to the Rzuceks, but proof that the line of communication between mother and son was still open. The content did not challenge the convictions or reopen the plea, it sketched remorse and religion and a claim of inner change, leaving outsiders to decide whether that meant anything without a complete account. This is where the tension lives, compassionate grief set against reputational defense, a shared loss message pressed up against a demand for responsibility and narrative accuracy. When Cindy spoke about families broken forever and prayed for healing for all of us, she was offering the language of inclusion, as if to say, we lost our son to his sentence and our granddaughters to the grave, you lost your daughter and your granddaughters, none of us will be whole again. When the Rzuceks spoke about truth and guilt, they were insisting that compassion cannot erase the line between perpetrator and victim, and that memory must not be reshaped by pain or by love. Under the civil side of the case, Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Rzucek, filed a wrongful death lawsuit the same day Chris was sentenced in Weld County in November 2018. In late November/December 2019 the court entered judgment for $6 million against Chris Watts, $3 million for the deaths of Shanann, Bella and Celeste, and $3 million in punitive damages, closing the civil action even though collection is unlikely. The Denver Post and Denver 7 reported the judgment and that it effectively ends the family's civil claims against him. People likewise noted the total, timing, and that it stemmed from the parents filing as immediate next steps after the criminal sentence. The civil judgment did not target Shanann's family or any third party, it was a damages award against Chris anchored in the admitted murders and the wrongful termination of a pregnancy. This is the only concluded, on-record lawsuit by Shanann's parents directly tied to the killings and the defendant. Later media roundups continue to reference the $6 million figure as the standing civil result. Since the murders, multiple TV projects have aired, and Shanann's family reacted to them on the record. Investigation Discovery released Family Man, Family Murderer, an ID murder mystery, 2019, an hour-long documentary that revisited the investigation and confession timeline. Mainstream listings place its release and availability across ID, Max, Hulu, and Apple TV's catalog pages. Lifetime then broadcast Chris Watts, Confessions of a Killer, on January 26, 2020, ahead of air. The Rzucek family, through attorney Stephen Lambert, publicly denounced the movie and the wave of conspiracy content around the case, telling ABC/Denver 7 that armchair detectives have pushed false claims like blaming Shanann or reviving the initial, discarded versions.
without computers.
Exactly.
So you remember, I talked to you, Tammy talked to you, Dave talked to you. We're all from Colorado. And so the last time we talked to you was a different situation, right? Our investigation was open and your case was open. That's completely different now. So your case is completely closed. Nothing about what we're going to talk about today has anything to do with an open investigation. So we're not here to get more charges on you or get any statements from you that are going to jam you up anymore, right? That's all done. So all of our cases are closed and the court case is closed. So there's nothing that we're going to talk about today that's going to get you in any type of trouble at all. And so I wanted to make sure you knew that's not why we're here. Okay. But why we are here. So the three of us work from three different agencies, right? Quite a bit different. CBI, FBI, and Frederick. Different goals. And the things that happened with you kind of all brought us together. And as the months have passed on since everything happened, we just keep in touch with each other. We keep talking to each other. And we've all separately kind of said, did Chris seem unique to you? And me and Tammy have talked about this. Dave and I have talked about this. Did Chris's situation seem different to you? And we keep having that conversation. We can't quite put our finger on it, right? We think that your life leading up to all of the things that happened were very interesting to us. And for me personally, I don't know if you remember, but one of the last things you told me was, hey, Graham, I'm sorry that I started lying to you. And that stuck with me for the last couple months. It's been ringing in my head, right? I've never, ever worked a case like this where someone told me that, ever. And so as I walked away, I thought, Chris is different. Chris is a little bit unique in that regard. So in talking with Tammy and talking with Dave, I said, what did you feel like when it all went down? When we were there, we were talking to you guys, and we all kind of, in our own different way and in our own different wording, said it all happened a bit too quick for us, right? So when we saw you last, we were talking and talking and talking about your family, about your parents, about everyone. And then the next thing you know, for me and Tammy and for Dave, all of a sudden some patrol officers came in and arrested you. And that was far quicker than we had hoped it would happen. And you understand why that happened, and we understand why that happened. But it left us with 1,000 questions that we didn't get to ask. And then even more importantly, I think it probably left you with 1,000 things that you didn't get to talk about with us. I don't know if you feel that way or not, but and so that's why we're here today. We wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit more about everything. I think there's a lot of things that you didn't get to talk about, and so that's why we're here. And it sticks with me that to this day, there's not one person that's told me, I saw it coming. I knew Chris was like that. I knew it. Not one person. So it's interesting to me, right? Not one. So we want to talk a little bit about that. Some of the people that we work with, your family, Shanann's family, have said, if you get to talk to Chris, would you tell him some things for me? So we have that to talk about today, and it's good. I think you'll like it. I think it will give you some closure. And so really that's why we're here. Are you available to talk to us?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So off the bat, if you have any questions, just tell us.
Okay.
If there's something that you don't want to talk about, that's okay. Wouldn't that press you a little bit? Okay, you might say, well, do you mind if we just maybe then ask one question? If something makes you uncomfortable, just tell us. If we need to take any bathroom breaks, we can take bathroom breaks. For anything like that. And we'll take bathroom breaks and water breaks ourselves too. So then, is there anything about your schedule today that makes it that you can't talk to us?
No, there was like a pass for this and the AM and the PM.
Yeah, they reserve the room the whole day,
Oh,
just
okay.
in case.
That's just what they do.
Okay, I didn't know if that was like 2 separate things or something.
I think you have to go back for lunch to get counted for or something.
Oh.
Accounted for.
Yeah, I think
11:30.
Lunch is like 11, what they're counting like 12:15. So
So in general, how is it here?
it's a lot different in Colorado.
Is it?
Good or bad?
that's better, I think, because I mean, it's here. I'm actually around other people. I mean, in Colorado, it was just like I was segregated, and it was like hanging on the walls all night, screaming, and just telling me
From other people?
Oh,
Really?
they just telling me like how I should kill myself and like what they're gonna do to me, and just like all that kind of stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
it was today. This is a lot different because I mean, people here don't seem to. It's not like they don't care, but it's just kind of like they don't like judge you as soon as you walk in. In Colorado, it was like they knew why I was there, and they just that was it. They were just like they had 1 second on hold of me. It would have been
Really?
yeah.
Gee, man. Must be out then.
Out of like what kind of jail? I don't know what it was like in DOC there, but like they had to lock down the jail for me to walk down the hallway.
Wow. It will? So they had to make sure you were completely separated from anyone else. Jeez.
Wow.
Like I didn't see anybody else there. Like I was still next to somebody, but like I never saw them.
You just hear them.
How did they know who you were?
I don't know. I just they make phone calls in there too.
Oh, okay.
And they got the newspaper in there before I got in there. So
Yeah. Have you been able to talk with family?
oh yeah, definitely. Like we get from 6 p.m. to 7:30. That's our my unit's not out, so we get to use the phone at that point in time.
Really? And do they charge you for it, or?
Oh, it's just like it's like Secures or something.
Okay. And how do you make money to pay for that?
They put money on the phone.
Oh.
So if I call, like, if I was like to dial somebody's number, they have to have like a phone account set up.
Oh.
It's like restricted.
And then so who you call pays for it?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Have you been able to talk to like family members and parents and all
Yeah,
that?
my mom and dad, my sister.
Okay. Good. Is that a good thing?
That's a good thing. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't hear from me. They're like, "Oh, what's wrong?" What's going on?
Oh. Good. And how is it with them?
And so far, so good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hard to hear your parents at sentencing.
Yeah.
I didn't know what they were gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And so, yeah, I really appreciated what they said. I don't know about you.
I definitely was. I didn't expect them to be there. So I knew they were there on the 6th. I'm sick, but I didn't expect them to fly back, and I wanted to fly back for that.
Yeah. And then while we all said,
That's right.
good. Well, so we have 1,000 questions. I'm sure you do too. Do you care if we start, or do you have any questions for us?
Go ahead. We'll start.
All right. So one of the things that we're battling with is, and I won't make any assumptions today. So, are you aware that this was a national story?
After a little while, it was. I didn't talk to my parents while I was in Colorado.
Okay.
Because, I mean, my attorney team told me, all right, no phone calls, no letters, no nothing. So, like, I made one phone call when I was in the segregation area there, but my dad thought it was like somewhat like a news.
Oh.
I trying to call.
So he didn't answer?
Yeah, so he didn't answer, but other than that,
Okay.
I didn't talk to anybody, but from what some of the deputies were saying that, for my attorney team coming in and said, this is like, they've got people from Australia, England, and all kinds of people trying to figure out what's going on. So,
Did they send you any other letters, like fan mail or anything? Well,
I got letters, but I couldn't keep them with me, so like I could read them like on my hour out. But it's like I got a bunch of just letters that had no return address and all stuff that was just not very good letters.
yeah.
So
Okay. They came from a weird perspective, didn't they? From what we had heard.
definitely, there was one person, I guess, from Broomfield that was like writing like 4 times a week trying to come visit me, and then there was just a lot of people like writing that was like lead through markers saying, like you're a monster, or all kinds of weird stuff.
Well, we're going to talk about some hard issues today, but I don't intend to take you to a dark place today.
Okay.
I hope that when we're done, you'll feel better. I hope it'll be therapeutic. We're going to talk about, obviously, what happened with your family. So that's going to be hard to talk about. I appreciate anything you can tell me about it. If you need to take time out, if you need to get a tissue, that's fine, right? I think it'll be very good for you. It'll be good for us. And so one of the reasons I asked about that national attention is we were aware that you were getting a lot of letters, a lot of interest, and then us personally as law enforcement, we got so many people who claim to have known you, claim to have been with you, dated you.
Shanann's parents stand on truth, guilt, and the promise to protect her reputation from claims the evidence does not support. Chris's parents stand on love, shared loss, and the hope that a full account will matter for everyone left behind. So we close with the question at the heart of this series: when grief speaks in public, who owns the story, the bereaved who defend a loved one's memory, or the parents who will not abandon their child? If this journey mattered to you, stay with us, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter as we continue to separate what's known from what's guessed, and listen carefully to the people still living with the aftermath.